Francesca Nunez from No Longer Silence, and the topic tonight is PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So again,
Francesca,
yes, sweetheart, go ahead.
is it the medicine they use for that? Is it working for them?
Sometimes, I'm glad you asked that question. Sometimes it does. Like I said, I personally know somebody that is taking the medication and seeking counseling. And I think they have to monitor the dosage because who I know overpowers the medication because I see the outburst still. Like I said, 4th of July, he was not able to participate in the fireworks because he recognized that it was going to trigger anxiety and panic attacks and headaches. And he takes the medication every day. I think it should be, increased because I always say body size sometimes overpowers like the medication. 9 out of 10, I saw some success in the medication, and sometimes I don't. And the individual that I personally know, it has to be increased because he still has outbursts and screaming. Out of the blue, he gets upset for every little thing, and I start like, did you take your meds? Yeah, I take it. So it has to be, that he has to address it, but the person I know sometimes is in denial. Like, he takes the medication, and to him, he knows it's not working, that it needs to be increased because the outburst and the anger is, like, still there. So he's trying to basically do it with counseling and stuff, but on the sidebar, trying to manage it the best way he can. But I think it needs to be increased because I see a lot of severities in him and outbursts, and that's not good when there's children, involved where they'd be like, why daddy screams, why daddy flips out of the blue, he throws stuff, and I see this firsthand. So sometimes, the medication from in my field that I've been around veterans, some tell me that it does and it doesn't work at the same time. It needs to be like, a little stronger. And how strong it could be, I don't know.
I know my uncle used to be like that when we used to have cookouts.
Yes.
He was in Vietnam, and like these motorcycles would come. You know how they make that backfire noise?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and he'd be jumping up and down to about hit the deck, and he'd be screaming under the table and all that stuff.
You see,
that's like a flashback or something.
Exactly, and that's exactly the outbursts that I was talking about, what they see and they don't see, and you're absolutely right. I myself, I jump when I hear a motorcycle pass me, that they do that big sound. Even the cars that they have, I don't know what they call that stuff that the cars have, and they pass and they have that like boom boom sound. I literally jump because you don't expect the car to pass by you that loud. I jump, and I don't have that. It just, gives me anxiety to hear loud noises like that. I like peace when a car is just driving nice and soft. I don't need that boom, boom, bang, and I can relate with that happens to him because that happens to the person I know. And there's a lot of stuff with the PTSD that comes with it because, there's like I said, it includes complaining. The person complains a lot. Being late or doing poorly in the job. The person that I know sometimes stays in jobs for short term, or does a poor job on purpose. Sometimes they say purposely, but they know sometimes what they're doing, and they fall back on that to get away with stuff. I'm not saying everybody in general, but self-blame. I've seen, like, when he argues with the wife, it's like, you're always nagging me. I'm trying to do the best I can, but I'll see generally that it's his fault, and I'll be like, why is he like that? Is the meds increased? Is he seeing his therapy, to his therapist to let him know what he's doing right, what he's doing wrong, if he needs, more intense than usual in the therapy, because I see he does. Self-injury. I've seen the person inflict self-injury sometimes, and I'll be like, Jesus, I've seen that. self-injury I've seen in people, they cut themselves, young ladies, they cut themselves to numb whatever abusive stuff that's going through them. That cutting stuff is no joke. And they'll use long sleeves. Sometimes it'll be affiliated with the PTSD. Aggressiveness, they feel threatened, not able to use others' responses as a positive. Everything they see it as negative when you're saying something to them, especially if you see that you address an outburst. They'd be like, oh, you're making a big stink about it. I didn't yell like that. And if I have recordings, yes, and I can put it up in this podcast, you'll be like, whoa, is that being like that every single day? Yes. So sometimes sometimes they never see the positive in everything. They play the blame game. Can toxic parents, listen to this. This one really got me interested because I never thought it can happen. Can toxic parents cause TDSD? Absolutely. People can develop issues of trauma in situations where they are raised by an alcoholic parent, neglected as a child, emotionally bullied by their caregiver. Poor parenting can be another more subtle insidious cause of PTSD as their children become adults. That right there, like I said, this disorder has many, many avenues. We would never think, can a toxic parent cause that? Yes, they can. If they abuse alcohol, if they neglect their child, they bully their child. We see also seniors get bullied by their caretaker, and they fear, catch anxiety, panic attacks. So yes, it falls into that. Poor parenting, yes. We're all grown. We know a lot of stuff that happens. Some children that ought to be removed from certain situations in the household, they are kept with the parents that can manage the alcohol, can manage the drugs. How is that? I don't know. I've never been in a household like that, but I've seen firsthand children that are being brought up by parents that are like that. And they do come out of the household professionals. I have to say that. They set their minds in going to school however they can, and they learn from that situation. I'm not going to be like my parents. I'm going to become something. And they really do. And I'm extremely proud that someone can come out of a situation like that. I'm proud of myself because I went through, and that's another testimony, I went through a situation similar, and I always said I'm going to raise my kids to the best of my knowledge, and I was going to protect my kids so they never, ever got hurt when they were little, and I did the best. As a mom, I did my best. I was like mother bear all the time, but they never understood. But sometimes you can catch different anxieties from different situations. And I always say you have to be there and know that to understand a lot of people. And I really, when I walk into this field, I know alcoholism firsthand. We don't come from perfect family, but I know a lot of individuals in my life in the past that I know were alcoholics. I know that they use drugs, and I witnessed and I seen that, and I had to learn how to get myself out of that situation and get my children out of that situation so they don't get affected by it. And huh? Oh my God, who just said that?
That's somebody talking in the background.
Yeah, I just muted them. So yeah, a lot of stuff that happens in the past makes you who you are today. And I always express not to be judgmental because we never know anyone's background. I just give kudos to whoever comes out of that situation. I really do. Because
Can I ask a question?
Of course you can. You can ask as many questions as you want.
Listen, when I was 14, I got shot 5 times.
Wow.
And when I got home, I was afraid to go outside. And my mom wouldn't let me go nowhere near a window or even in the hallway. So you think that's what probably had her scared too?
Yeah, that can be affiliated because, like I said, there's a lot of symptoms that come to it. The trauma, you went through a trauma, you got shot. Your mother didn't want you to get hurt anymore, so that would cause a lot of emotional distress. It would cause a lot of, anxiety too, because not only she kept you in the home, you got to think too that one day you're going to have to come leave the house, and she's going to think, are you ever going to come back?
Now, when I did end up going out, it took me like a little over 5 years.
Wow.
Like, it took me like 5 years where I could handle, hearing a gunshot. Because every time I hear a gunshot, I used to always I start shaking or something then. Mm-hmm. I'll be looking around.
Now, can I ask you a question? Was that something that happened like randomly? You didn't know that was going to happen?
No, we was at the park, and a fight broke out.
Okay.
And the guy that they were shooting at, he was running behind me. I never knew I got hit. I never even felt the bullet hit me.
Okay.
I fell in the street, and I fell out in the street on Broadway, and that's when they took me to the hospital. Said I had five different bullets in me.
Now, you said you never came out of the house for 5 years?
No, I would come and sit on the porch, but I would never go no further than that. But every time I was scared like if I heard a gunshot or something.
Uh-huh.
I would run in the house, or I would duck under the porch there, because I lived in a rough neighborhood back then. And every time I heard something like that, it just scared the hell out of me.
And how were you sleeping?
I couldn't hardly sleep that much because I found myself sweating a lot. And then, at night, because around the corner from my house, there was a lot of shooting going on around that way. So you could hear from our apartment. And I used to be scared to sleep in the bed. I used to sleep on the floor.
Wow.
My mom used to come in the room and take me in the room with her and put me on a little sofa next to her bed and keep telling me everything gonna be all right. I just didn't know, because I was like, it made me feel like whoever was shooting was coming after me and stuff.
Mm-hmm. I am so sorry to hear that happen to you. I don't know. I would be devastated. I think I would have isolated myself if something like that would have happened to me. The fact that you even got to sit on the porch, that is, I admire you. That you even got to sit in the porch, but then you got scared and went back in the house, because that was a big step you took from coming to the house to the porch. And even leaving the porch to the sidewalk, I still say those are like baby steps when you pass through something that's trauma. So, something that's going to shock you when you ask me, could you have had that? Look at the symptoms that I'm going to tell you of the episodes. How does someone act during a PTSD episode? The person may relive the trauma, which, you did from being shot, that caused them to have PTSD through the intrusive thoughts, flashback vision, nightmares, includes shaking, sweating, racing heart, or difficult breathing. Get that? You were sweating. Okay, so yes, you had, because of that traumatic thing that happened to you, yes, you consider yourself, you fall into the category, because I just gave you what the episodes are when somebody goes through PTSD, and they do the shaking, the sweating, racing heart, difficult breathing, flashbacks that you think about the incident. That I can have some of it, of course. Of course, because as a domestic violence, not victim, survivor, I went through flashbacks. I went through thinking about my trauma. I still sometimes have trouble sleeping. I fight to not take sleeping pills. I can admit that. Back then I had to depend on that type of medication to sleep. I try to avoid it by all means, because some of those pills are addictive. Once your body gets to, it gets immune to it, but also attached to it, because physically your brain will say, well, you can't go to sleep. pop that little pill and you go to sleep like a baby, but the next morning you wake up a little drowsy from the side effect of the medication. That's why I said sometimes if you can sleep on your own with chamomile tea, or there's another Spanish tea that we supposedly drink that's supposed to relax your brain and your body, it helps you, and it's a remedy that's healthier than taking the medication. So I can absolutely raise my hand that I had, sometimes have taken sleeping pills and able to sleep when I couldn't deal with so much pressure and thinking, trying to block those thoughts. Like I said, for me, counseling wasn't my thing. And I said here, why? Because she was asking me for stuff in the past that had nothing to do with my domestic. And I said, listen, I'll handle it with God. It'll be me and God. But there was at times that someone would say, well, if you take a sleeping pill, all of it will go away. I noticed that it didn't go away. The symptoms the next day were worse. And for a year or two, I almost got dependent on the medication. I said, this is not for me. I'm going to have to start going to sleep the best way I can. And how I do that is by listening to sometimes gospel music, meditating or journaling, and it has helped a lot. And I thank God that he removed that from me, because I was almost getting codependent, because I said, if I didn't take that pill, I can't sleep. And that's what I computed in my brain. Without that, I can't sleep. When I did go...
That's what they try to do to me. That's what they try to do to me up here because my legs be hurting so hard, so bad. They want to give me some painkillers. I tell them no. So what I do is I just lay back and turn on my jazz station.
Yeah.
Just rub my legs. To this day, I got a bullet in each one of my legs. 51 years later, I still got a bullet in each leg.
Wow, they couldn't remove them? They got lodged?
Yeah, they said it was too close to arteries. And every day, when I rub my leg, I could feel the bullet sitting right there.
Oh, wow.
It reminds me of that all the time. But it's not like, I know I can handle it because I ain't going through all that, worrying about somebody shooting and all that. But it's just a reminder every time I rub my leg, I can feel the bullet there. And it just remind me of how I got there.
Wow. I commend you. Now, I'm going to ask you a tough question, because you guys like to ask me tough questions. Did you ever feel at one point, because sometimes we do go back and we start thinking, why me? Did you ever think back then when that happened to you, like, why me? Why did the person, that had to get the bullets, why didn't he get it instead I did? Did you ever have those thoughts in your head?
To be honest with you, I started blaming God for that.
Okay.
Because I kept saying, why me, God? What did I do wrong?
Okay. No, I respect that. No judgmental. I've been there, done that.
I'm just glad that the guy who's shooting at me didn't hit me in the back or a serious, like my kidney or liver or anything like that, my lung.
Amen.
Because when you laying on the ground and you bleeding, I swear I didn't even know I was bleeding. I thought that it felt like I had a temperature of 150 degrees. And I was just laying there looking up, asking God, why me? Why me? Why me? I don't want to die.
Wow. And another question, since they're embedded, I've seen a lot of people still have health problems because they're lodged in your leg. Do you get checked, a certain amount of months down the road just to make sure they, sometimes they get lodged, but they'll move. Have you ever?
Yeah, I get that checked, and they still in the same place.
Okay.
They haven't moved. I thank God for that, because I don't want it to be roaming through my legs. But like my right leg, it took a couple of bullets took a big chunk out of my bone between my knee and my waist, and I get these Charlie horses, and man,
wow,
they hurt like crazy. But
blessings to you. No, absolutely. And you know what? You'll get through it, because I can't tell you I'm not going to be the one that cuz you can never say something to someone you'll get over it, cuz you definitely won't, because you know what? It was a traumatic thing that happened to you, and you're always, no matter what, you're going to have, nightmares. They'll come, once in a blue moon. For me, it's been over 17 years, over 20 years, I'm going to say now, since those incidents happened to me. And let me tell you something, when I speak at public events, people think it's easy. I'm actually going to mention an event which I'm going to participate in Newark. So anybody that lives in Newark, I'm going to give the event I'm going to be at. I'm going to do a domestic violence walk. And the person reached out to me and wants me to tell my testimony. When I tell my testimony, after all these years, I still get a numb in my throat. After I tell my testimony, I do get flashbacks. And I do have difficulty sleeping for 2 days. To be honest with you guys, sometimes we can be strong, but when we're going to tell our testimony and relive all that back, and no matter how strong we are, we still reliving all that, and it stays in your head. And it takes me approximately 2 days meditating, asking God to invoke those thoughts off my head. I did a good thing by helping someone else, speaking at an event, but sometimes I'm not the only one. I've heard from other people. I tell my story and I relive everything. When I go back home to sleep, my brain doesn't relax, and it does happen because we're just human, but sometimes getting the word out, anyone in the audience never think how we feel after we finish talking. There's a lot of nervousness and anxiety when we start to mention what happened to us, and then when we finally come home and take a shower, and that nervousness and the anxiety releases off your body, you start thinking like, okay, I did this today. Am I going to sleep tonight? That's how I literally talk to myself, and I start putting meditation music, listening to calming music, and just like, God, I did a good thing. Let me, sleep tonight. I want to get all those thoughts out of my head, because sometimes it can be 3 times out of the year you're speaking at an event. It's not going to be every day you're telling your testimony, but when you do, 9 out of 10, everybody that's telling their story, they'll come and be like, I have a hard time sleeping tonight. I said, girl, I do too. I was like, because we're reliving that when we tell our testimony. And like I said, I'm far from perfect. It happens to me. No matter how strong I am, I have to ask God to help me to sleep at night, invoke all those thoughts, and God does it. He really does it, and it takes a lot from me to also unwind and just listen to gospel music, something I like, break every chain, I rise, and it really helps a lot. But it takes me 2 days to unwind from that situation. So can we call it PTSD? Sometimes you could say that, because it is stressful. It is a disorder.
Francesca, after all that time, I was afraid to go outside. I went to that park one time, and I never went back.
That tends to happen, Miles.
My brothers made me go back there and just face it. I'm like, no, I didn't even want to go back there. I haven't been back there since.
You know that sometimes they say, and to overcome what you went through, sometimes counselors actually suggest that. They tell you to overcome whatever trauma you went to. It's to go to where it happened. And I can relate with you, because I would say like a year or 2 years ago, I went to my old place, to the neighborhood, just to see how the development looked and to see if I saw anybody. And to this day, now that you mentioned that I look at my number 26 Sandy Court, I cannot look at that apartment sometimes. I can't, and I walk away, and I'll be like, why did I even come up here? What did I want to see? What did I want to prove to myself? And sometimes it's very hard to go back to where something happened to you. But they say it's closure, because you can't let that area win. You can't give that area that energy. Whether you're ready or not, and you already made the first step, but say you'll never go back, I can understand because yours was a shooting. Would I want to go back to where I got shot when it wasn't for me? Maybe not, because it can trigger a lot of emotions. It could trigger, everything you can see when you was laying on the ground, bleeding, out and stuff, or the people screaming. So it's something hard. In my case, they sometimes say go to where the situation started. See if you can look at the apartment from the outside. See what happens, how you feel. And I did it, and I had to walk away. I had to walk away because I was like, I don't want to, backtrack something I want to forget and just leave it behind. But I learned now that I can't leave it behind because it has become me. It's who I am now. It's something that I can't no longer say I'm going to put it in the back because I sign myself up to talk in events, my testimony. I sign myself up to talk one-on-one with people. So now it's not something that I can say, throw it in the back burner, Francesca. No, it's something that I learned to embrace now and say, when the time comes, you know what to do, you know how to unwind, and just keep it moving, girl. But it's not easy. It's not easy. I put a lot of effort into trying to get over it, but now it's my calling, and it's something that I have to, practically embrace because I'm helping, I'm helping others. In your case, I'm going to say you have a powerful testimony, I'm going to tell you, from the heart, and it's something that I think God is just putting inside of me to tell you because you just said it to me. You have a powerful testimony in where you can reach the young heads that we have now, that I'm going to call them knuckleheads, that think they can pick the gun up instead of using the fist. And I'm against violence, but now we have that they pick up the gun instead of picking up the one-on-one, the fist, and they shoot each other. And you have a testimony where someone actually shot you, and I'm going to say it wasn't meant for you. It was meant for somebody else, but you are a living person now that have bullets in your leg from that situation. And down the road, look at maybe you being, not only an advocate, but a speaker, because you have a powerful testimony where they see and they hear from you what you went through. And they see for themselves that gun is not the solution. You could not have been here today because five gunshots, hello, that's God. That's God that you're here. So he has you here for a purpose.
That's why I couldn't believe it when they told me in the hospital. I'm like, damn, I'm still here.
No, that's a miracle, and sometimes we're all miracles whoever went through anything, because there's a reason to why God has us here. And I don't just speak for myself. Anybody that went through anything, I'm talking about molestation, child abuse, prostitution, alcoholism, drug addiction, anything you came out of, and you're here today making a difference, God wanted you here for a reason. I question, like you did, God, so many years, why? Why you put me through this? What is the outcome? Sometimes I wanted him to stab me so many times that even though I had my children, there was at one point that I just said, okay, a family member will snatch them up or something, or the dads, but just wipe me out because I can no longer do this no more. But then when I started thinking, I said, I have my children. They'll be without a mom. I can't think this way. Switch it around, and it's going to come around however God decides to do it. But there were so many times I questioned certain things in my life. I questioned why I had the cancer. I was already to the point one foot out the door. And when I survived, I gave myself to him and I served him. And I said, whatever you put me, any path, I'm going to serve you because you gave me my life for a reason. And I understand that. So I carry many hats and stuff that I shouldn't be here today. Many things I went through, I shouldn't be here today. And I was like, you got me here for a reason. So I'm your instrument. You're going to use me to talk to anyone and anybody about any situation. I'm not an alcoholic, but I studied a lot of stuff, and the community stuff that I do, I've seen a lot of individuals, and some have come from domestic violence, relationship situations in the home. I can relate and talk. Been there, done that. So, my field comes with different hats. So I'm not afraid to be boots on the ground. So I've always said now I don't say, wipe me out, God. No, push me forward because you have me here for a reason. And I know.
So Francesca.
Yes, sweetheart.
A lot of the guys that come out of military end up being snipers. That causes that too.
When they're put in that situation to be snipers, and I say when they're put in that situation, to me, I said it has to be a little dreadful for you to have that, that steel thing. Because I don't like saying guns. I'm against gun violence. When you have that, I'm gonna say it because I don't like. Well, when you have that gun in your hand, especially if it's a machine gun or whatever they call that, SS-13 or whatever, Uzi, and you're actually got to kill somebody, to me, I said it has to be very traumatizing because within a war, you're not just killing one or two people, you're killing dozens. So I can just imagine that individual trying to sleep at night, reliving all that, where you're actually being told you got to wipe those people out, in that war. Let's put an example, Iraq. How many people, that war that has nothing to do with us, but how many of our men go over for 8 to 9, 1 year shooting, constantly shooting 10 to 15, 20 people? That has to be traumatizing. You're automatically going to go to sleep. You're going to sweat. You're going to have nightmares. You're going to go through emotions. You're going to go through anger issues. You're going to go through insomnia. So, of course, you're going to have that PTSD. Of course you are. And worse than where the medication sometimes becomes where it doesn't work and you got to get something a little harder with it in order for you to cope on a day-to-day basis. That's why I said that when they come back and they have to function back in the household, it's strong. It's not easy. We don't know actually what they went through. You don't know if there was a body that blew up with a bomb and a leg or an arm or half of the body fell on them in front of their faces. We don't know that. So sometimes seeing all that and you're bringing it back home, you got to learn how to cope. And if you have a spouse and she doesn't know what you went through and you start giving descriptions for she can help you out, is a different story. But if you keep it inside and don't get help, you can just imagine that that's like a bomb that's going to explode in the household, especially, like I said, there's children in the home, the spouse doesn't understand what you went through, because you go through those emotions, the shakes, the anxiety, someone yelling, you turn around, you do an outburst. Like I said, I know someone that's going through that, and on a day-to-day basis, to try to get a hold of himself and control is not easy. It's very, very hard. He has cried. He has had several meltdowns, and where he'll say, I'm going to counseling, and this BS is not for me because it's not helping. The medication, I think it should be a little stronger. How stronger it should be, I don't know. That I would have to investigate, because sometimes, like I said, I've been in veteran homes, and they tell me I got to mix that with something else. Because in order for me to go to sleep, I can't. I got to mix it with a sleeping pill. And sometimes they do. They got to give them like a heavy, heavy sleeping pill along with the PTSD medication. So that in itself will let you know it's strong.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
How are you today, honey bunch?
I'm good.
Good.
And
very interesting your topic today. It always is, actually.
Thank you so much.
What you're talking is very interesting, and I was listening to you. My name is David, for whoever doesn't know me yet. The problem is that many people do not talk about mental health. All this comes under mental health. And the problem is that when somebody is having a mental issue, they don't want to talk about that because society is not ready to listen to that. Some of us can, but others can't. Because if you talk about mental health, people think you're crazy.
Absolutely.
And us as human beings, we're not used to taking a gun and killing people. That doesn't come in our nature. That's something that they teach in the Army to do. They prepare your mind. Your mind is not ready for that. It's like a computer. They computerize your mind to start killing people. And unfortunately, a lot of these people that come back from the Army become to be homeless. It's sad to say, but it's very true.
Especially most of them come out of the Marine Corps.
Oh yes, that's even worse.
They train to kill.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you something, Miles and David. I'm glad you brought that up. With the percentage when they come home so aggressive. They come home like, you know how they prep you up in the Army to be rough, stern. When they come home, they stay with it. You know, some of them come all right, I'm going to say, but they come with that regimen of that macho, I would say, I'm going to call it macho attitude, and where it sticks with them. And they run the household that way, like it's what he says is not what she says. And the child is brought up very strictly, which is good to a certain extent how far you want to take it. But I've seen several times in military homes that they come back with that attitude, that strength, and, you know, and not realizing that you came from a situation where you offed people, not because you wanted to, because you was told to, and don't know how to handle that. And that's why I said that when they come back to the household, some come back rough, stern, aggressive, and don't know how to get the help because, it's like David said, mental health is real. Some people don't want to admit that they have it because he's absolutely right. You don't want to be classified, or you're crazy, you can't handle it, or get over it. You know, what you went through, you know, that's nothing. No, we can't speak to people that way.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we can't speak to people like that because, like I said, you don't know what someone went to. See, my own situation, I'm going to bring it up. He got shot 5 times. I can't tell him here, well, you're alive, get over it. You know, the important thing is, you know, move on with your life. That happened, leave it in. No, I can't. I cannot, for one thing, say something like that. I can emphasize that is a terrible thing that happened to him. Should it happen to him? No. The park should have been a safe place for him to hang out with his mother along with other children there and not be suggested to something that probably took him months to heal from, surgeries and stuff, and then the trauma of having to deal with, am I going down the street? You know, is there a drive-by? If a car passes, he'll be looking over his shoulder. A lot comes with situations when you go through, something like that. So, like I said, David said it correctly. We have a situation that a lot of people don't want to address mental health here and believe that it's real. We have a lot of people with mental health issue, a lot, and it's a shame. And it's not addressed, and some people that do have it don't take the medication. I can understand that some of them are strong. Some of them will get you zombie-like. Some of them will not get you lucid, like your mind is, is going. And I can understand that. So it's kind of a little rough, but, like I said, PTSD is I classify it very dangerous because it comes with a lot of elements, a lot of strong elements with it. And if it's not addressed with counseling and medication, it does get severe with time. It does get worse. It's curable, but it comes back when the medication stops.
You can imagine why so many of them guys come home. They end up being police officers.
Yeah, there you go.
And they be like, they dealing with weapons and anxiety and mad. That's crazy.
Yeah, there you go. And like I said, I don't want to touch the bases on the police officers, but we do have a situation ongoing now where they are aggressive when they, approach you. It has to be said. They are aggressive when they approach you. Their tone of voice is strong. Their authority is like you can't ask them why they stopped you. You got to give them the license, registration, that's it. And they come back and they tell you the reason why they stopped you, and they can decide to give you a ticket, not a ticket. But you can't question them because they're the authority figure. If you say something, they tell you to shut up. I've seen it happen, or they'll tell you, I wasn't speaking to you. I didn't tell you to speak to me. Give me the registration license, and that's it. When they're going to arrest you.
But that's not the correct behavior as a police officer.
No, absolutely not.
If you're a police officer, and that's why we're seeing a lot of these police officers kill themselves, because they get into all these big messes and then they can't take it. And then the poor police officer, 30 years old, he's 30, he just killed himself. Oh, shoot. And you go, why did he kill himself? We go back to the same situation. Here we can talk about this because it's you and because we know your story, and your story is tough. But a lot of people, you talk to them and they say, oh, no, you're crazy. You can get over it. Yeah, there's things you can get over, but they affect you very strong because depending how you can take that situation.
No, absolutely.
Francesca, I gotta go, Francesca. So.
No, go ahead, sweetheart. And prayers up for you, and I hope you come out soon. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Have a good day.
You too, sweetheart. Prayers for healing. Yes, David, you're absolutely right what you just said. I can also say that some of the officers can suffer from PTSD. Some may not acknowledge it, but they have to suffer from that because on a day-to-day basis, they go to certain areas where are not good areas where they have to deal with a lot of stuff. The fact that you're holding a handgun and you have to shoot someone and not understand if they're going through a mental crisis is an awful thing because they got to go home and literally take that home with them and try to sleep and have that mentality. I just shot, an innocent person, though they had, an illness, and they have to, they have to deal with that. So, of course, I can say that some of them have to have PTSD. They have to. You go through a stressful trauma when you shoot someone. When you're very aggressive because you have that higher authority, I'm sorry, some of them need to be, I have to say, some of them have to be retrained because they're supposed to protect and serve, not harm. There's certain trainings that I think they should go through to address certain situations, especially when it's mental health cases, that is very scary. Sometimes we can't just pull, I debate a lot of times that why don't, they shoot them in the leg somewhere where it's not fatal. And I've had this debate with someone and they were like, well, they're coming at you with a knife, what you think you're going to do. But still, they're coming at you with a knife. I would think you would want to.
They're not ready for that situation.
Yeah,
they're not ready for the men to take that mental case on. There has to be a special unit that would be able to take care of the mental aspect because they're not ready for the mental aspect.
And then the outcome is worse because when they're not ready, they shoot the person. And then you have to deal with the fact that you shot someone that had a mental illness. Then you have to deal with that trauma that you did that because you wasn't well you wasn't well equipped to deal with that situation. And that's why I say, Debbie, sometimes I debate, and I often get, well, if they come at you with a knife, would you expect that? I'm more sympathetic that you can shoot somewhere where it's not a mortal wound, like to the chest, in the head. I figure arm or a leg.
Am I able to think during that moment? And really what I'm thinking is my life is first, and this person is going to kill me.
Absolutely.
So I can't think, what part of the body am I going to shoot? No. I have to think, I have to protect me because this guy is going to kill me.
Absolutely.
This guy is going to take me down. So what can I do? I have to shoot him. I don't have a choice. Not everybody is able to talk about mental health. That's a topic that everybody's not ready for.
No, absolutely.
If you live it on a daily basis like we can talk to you about it because you've been through so much. I was hearing you about what it takes to talk about your testimony. It would be tough to hear it all because it's a lot and it's tough. I'm very happy and I'm thankful to God that your mental status, and I've told you this a couple of times. Your mental status is so good. It shocks me, and I pray to always to God that it continues that way because you've been through so much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
that's why.
So much.
That's why I mentioned that. That's why I mentioned earlier when people do talk about their testimony, you never think how the person feels afterwards. You know, we're never asked, how do you feel after you tell your testimony? No one asks. And I know for a fact how I feel when I do it. I go through a lot of anxiety, numbness, and stuff like that.
I think it could be any testimony.
Absolutely. I said molestation, child abuse, rape, prostitution, alcoholism, drug addiction. I've seen everyone that I've seen in this world. I participate in so many events, and I see when someone that went through drug addiction, they stumble in the words, and after they say what they went through, the person takes like 5 or 10 minutes to themselves. I go after them and be like, are you okay? And she'll be like, I need like 5 or 10 minutes. I'm like, fine, I'm here. And that was someone giving the testimony, and I was listening. And since I know and I can relate, I went right after the person. I said, you okay? You need some water? And she was like, no, I'm going to be fine. I was like, but then when I go home, you know, I shut down. I start thinking. And, you know, if we're together and we know each other, we know what to say to each other in that moment. But sometimes people think when you stand up there and you say your testimony, it might sound easy, but you don't know afterwards what happens. It takes a lot. Some people can say it and say, all right, I'm going to be fine. Sometimes it's very hard because some people are not fine. I've seen a lot of great women and great men that have stood up there to tell their testimony and literally break down. And I've seen it with my own eyes, and I'm like, you're okay? And I'll be fine. Sometimes I thought I can handle it, but it's not easy. So sometimes you never know. Some people are stronger than others, and it takes a lot of courage to stand up there.
I always think when you're going to talk to a person about any type of topic, especially a hard topic, you have to mentally prepare them because you never know what the other person's reaction is going to be.
No, absolutely. And not only that, the second part is the questions and then the answers. You get a lot of, in my field, I got a lot of, why did you last for 17 years? Why did you allow him to do that act on you when there was many things you could have picked up? In that instant, if you're not there, you don't know. That's why when I start my testimony.
I listened to your podcast. I think I've been around since you started. Me and Miles, I think I've been around since you started. And it's hard because that type of, I don't know too much about that, but listening to you, a lot of those relationships become addictive. So you don't know how to get there. You start feeling comfortable, and you don't want to leave. You do want to leave, but you don't know how to leave.
Exactly.
He says to you, "I'm going to change." That's like the alcoholic. I'm going to change. I'm stopped. I won't drink. This is the last weekend I'll drink. I love you. This is the last weekend.
I'm sorry. It won't happen again.
It won't happen again. Next weekend come by, same situation. Next weekend come by, same situation. And then he don't know how to leave. Oh, and he don't want no help because he doesn't have a problem. He doesn't have an addiction problem. He's all right. You're the one that has the problem. Why don't you get help? He's been out of work. He's been out of work for 3 weeks, and he's still telling you, "I don't have a problem. I'm all right." And he already got fired. And he'd say, "I don't have a problem. I'm okay. I'm all right. I'm perfectly fine." Yeah, you're not all right. You just got fired out of work. That's your first issue.
Yeah, denial. I always say acceptance is something strong, and denial is very, very, very strong too, because a lot of people don't want to accept. If you have something, the first step I always say is to admit it. The hardest thing for me was to do a restraining order, because I was very naive back then. I started thinking, okay, where do I start? How do I do this? Who am I affecting? What's going to be the outcome? When you do the restraining order, many that are under my wing, they'll be like, oh, if I do the restraining order, the family this, the friends this. At this point, I learned so much, and I said, listen, don't think about the family. Look for protection for you and your kids. Forget the family. They're going to get over it, because sometimes you have family that protect the abuser. Oh, my little boy, even though he's a grown man, my little boy is not capable of doing this and stuff like that. You're the evil one. If you do a restraining order and keeping him from his kids, you're the bad person. No, she's doing a good thing. And I've had to educate everybody.
But you know what? Unfortunately, sometimes the restraining order doesn't even work.
Oh, no, it does. I can contest to that. I'm sorry, I can contest to that, because I put one, and in 2018, sorry but not sorry, my ex tried to hit me October, and I still remember it, October the 9th of 2018, after being divorced for so many years. He staked me out on a dead-end street, and he almost hit me like 2, and you guys know 2 feet away is not that much, almost hit me with his car and came out arguing with me. And we were divorced since 2014. So get that, from 2018, the individual rose again. And then, because I didn't have proof and the streets didn't have cameras, and I had an affidavit from a girlfriend that I was talking to that physically heard him in the background, I was denied a restraining order. So under public record, and I told the judge, well, if not, I'm not going to be issued a restraining order for this. Well, I want in recording that if something happens to me, on the record, you're listening to it, he's here, I'm here, the lawyers are here. If something happens to me, he is responsible. And I'm saying on the record in the recording, if I'm not issued a restraining order, I want my voice to be heard today, recorded in this courtroom, that if something happens to me, I hold that individual with his full name responsible. Now I have it in a recording, whether you don't give me a restraining order, and I walked out of the courtroom and discussed. And that's why I do what I do today now, where I enforce restraining orders. I make sure restraining orders are enforced and put in place. And if they are violated, I'm the first one at the police station questioning as to why the individual is not in jail. Sorry but not sorry, because if we set a law out there, that piece of paper is supposed to be respected. If that piece of paper is not respected, then that person is in danger. And if that person is no longer here because of the individual coming in, beating her, shooting her, stabbing her, then who's at fault? It's not going to be her fault. It's the system. It's the system in itself. So if a piece of paper is placed in order, make the individual understand that if you knock on her door and you violate that, put him in jail for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. Make him understand you come out, you will fully go to jail the rest of your life if you touch her. And that's something that has to be, well, when it's not respected, it has to be respected. But now I make it my initiative that it is, and I've seen it happen on boots on the ground. Every restraining order that the 7 people are under my wing, those individuals had got arrested just by knocking on the door, just by you just making that phone call. You will respect that restraining order. So I've made sure, I mean, like I said, it's me, myself, and I, because I understand what I went through. I don't want on my conscience that I couldn't help that person. Here in the city of Patterson, like I said, I am trying to do a legislation where the individual is put in jail for whatever they did. Even if you did a violation of the restraining order, it has to be that that individual doesn't go to jail for 24 hours or 48. Let that individual sit in jail going through it for 30, 90 days and make them understand you can't go near her. And the more you keep doing it, stick them in jail. That's your job. That's a paper they have to respect. The judge is going to get tired of seeing that person's face. And it's going to be stronger and stronger every time they keep violating that. And I've seen it. And I've seen worse outcomes, and it doesn't have to come to that. Do we need that person dead for you to inflict the law stronger? No. I'm totally against that completely. Now, does it take one voice to try to get something done? Absolutely. Let's go back. Martin Luther King started it. Malcolm X started it, and they were one person. And once they started, they had a flock behind them. So I always say you have to be that one voice and be that boots on the ground and say, you know what, enough is enough. I'm tired of it. We're going to do this. And I don't care how far I got to take it. If I have to even go to Washington, D.C., this has to be stronger. Someone in New York actually did it. And now in New York, the laws for domestic violence is stricter. It's stronger. I know a case now that I followed that the person is serving 25 to life now. If you violate that restraining order, you go to jail for 90 days. And if you come out and do it again, it gets higher. It was now implicated in New York. And I have all the paperwork. And it was a case where the husband shot the wife more than 10 times. And the family just kept going, and kept going. Because they said they had to be a voice for Elizabeth. May she rest in peace. And the sister went through.
Is that the lady that they dress her up? They dress up as wedding brides because she got killed by her husband?
Yes, that's exactly the family.
I've heard of that case on TV.
Yep. Yeah. And this weekend, she just posted that the individual was given 25 to life. And she says she's going to keep going when he goes up for parole. Why? Because her sister's life matters to her. And me and her, we actually partner up because her organization is called Long Live the Butterfly in honor of her sister. So I have partnered up with her because she saw everything I'm doing here. And I told her, what you're doing in New York, I want to do it here in Patterson. And it's, like I said, it just takes one person to do the initiative. And once one person starts it, it makes a difference. Then everybody starts coming along. I partner up with my sister Lighthouse now in Newark, which is another domestic violence organization. And they're going to do a march October the 7th. And they want to unify with me so we can come together and make people understand domestic violence is real, is important. We're losing a lot of men, women, even youngsters to this because they think love is controlling. Love is not controlling. Love is not controlling. It's not supposed to hurt. And we are losing a lot of people. I turn on the TV and all I see is men shooting the women because they decide to leave them, and then they off the kids too. I saw something like that, and I just said, may they all rest in peace. Why? I ask myself why. And sometimes the person offs themselves too, because he knows what he's going to go through. You're going to go to jail. And when you go to jail and they find out exactly what you did, your life in jail is going to be purely hell. Completely from there forth, since you walk in your jail cell, when they find out you offed your kids, which was 2 and 3 years old, and your wife. What life you're going to have in jail? He offed himself. Was that, a good thing? I'm not going to say, to me, I'm going to say yes. You should have offed yourself only because that woman was not your property. And you offed her and your children. Would you be able to?
Many times what happens is their history of life when they were kids was bad. And that affects them very much. And they never talk to nobody about it. And then they continue the cycle. So mommy and daddy did it. Then, I can't. I want to stop it, but I can't stop it. I continue the cycle. Then their kids continue the cycle. And unfortunately, after COVID, mental health has become a big issue.
No, absolutely, David. And you know what? I'm very transparent and honest about my life. I went through all that, and I took one counseling session, and I'm going to be honest. The therapist, which I'm not going to name her name out of confidentiality and respect to her, she actually told me, you could have been an alcoholic, you could have been an addict, and you could have been an abuser. All those 3 things she told me after I told her everything I went through. And I told her, I learned through all my trauma and all the stuff I went through, that was not going to be me. That was absolutely not going to be me. That we have other.
Everybody's not so strong.
No, exactly.
I'm not going to do that. I'm not. It's like if alcohol runs in your family, I suggest you don't start drinking because you can't go down that road. That's possible.
No, absolutely. But you know what, David? She made me think. When she did that, she made me think. And believe it or not, I broke down and cried. For the first time in her session, I broke down and cried. And she asked me, why are you crying? I said, because you said something that hit me, and I'm thinking, what if I would have been? But I'm not. What if I would have been? And I put myself in that position thinking I could have became one. And I told her I didn't. But you made me realize that everything I went through, I could have became that person. And I started thinking, what if I would have started drinking? What if I would have been an addict? What if I would have abused my own children because of the fact of what was done to me? And I didn't do none of the above, but she made me think, and I said, oh, snap, I never thought of it that way either. And she made me think, and I broke down and cried, and I said, oh, my God, I never would have wanted to do that to my kids. I never want to be, an alcoholic or an addict. But she says, out of everyone I've ever had in a session, I got to tell you, young lady, you are a strong woman, because everything you went through, you could have been popping pills, numbing the pain with everything and anything, and I could not blame you, because everything you've gone through in your life was to bring you to that situation, and it didn't. And I looked at her and I said, absolutely.
I personally don't know you. I've been fortunate. We've talked a lot, and that's something that I have told you a lot that I admire from you, that you've been able to bring up your kids well after being in so much stuff, after being in so many situations, after being affected by your disease, and after being affected by everything you've gone through.
No, absolutely. That the outcome for other people is the same? No. That's why I said through my stuff, I'm able to help someone else. I'm the type that I intervene. If I see a situation, I'll be like, oh, can I speak to you? And I do it in such a loving way, and I'll be like, not to get in your business, but can I suggest or say something to you? And they listen, and they listen because sometimes I'll see situations that kids are going through something. I'll be like, your kid is seeing this. Is there a way I can help you? And 9 out of 10, I get around it, and the person, be like, oh, can you refer me here? Can you send me here? And the outcome is good. Not sometimes I'll get like, yeah, my business. Ain't nobody asked you, and I'll pull away because I'll get that sometimes, and I gotta respect it. But there's some people that are forthcoming.
You're not gonna get that from everybody.
No, absolutely. It's a chance I take.
Some people text. Some people
Hello?
say to you, "Thank you for this."
No, he was talking. I can wait.
Oh, go ahead.
So no, some people are thankful when you're able to listen.
Okay, you finished, David?
Yes, I am.
Okay, go ahead, Ivana.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good.
Very interesting conversation. And the last thing I heard you say, which your therapist has shared with you, was, I think, similar to what David was saying as well. So some people handle trauma and abuse in a way where they say, okay, I'm not going to do that when I get older. They know it's wrong, basically by knowing it's wrong behavior. And we're all made up differently. You can have 6 siblings grown up in the same house experiencing the same abuse either to themselves or between their parents. And out of the 6, you might have 1 or 2 who do not reflect what the household was going through, and then you might have the other 4 who are affected by it, and based on the way they behave, based on the substance abuse, based on the mind/mental health behaviors that are not within the norm, I'll say, as normal is described. You'll have some that are abusive because they lived through it, so somewhere in their minds they adapted it as being normal, the expected, but it's also sometimes genetic. So it's really, really difficult to know 2 things: why people live through it, stay with it, and then why people do it. Why they do it. Sometimes it's a trigger. I know your message spoke about, what the heck did I just say? Your message spoke about PTSD, right?
Uh-huh.
PTSD is not just, as we know, it's not just military related. It's just like we're saying. You can have post-traumatic stress syndrome just living in a house where abuse was and you were a child, or being abused yourself even as an adult. You can suffer with those triggers, and how you handle them has a whole lot to do with you. So yeah, you were strong based on what the therapist heard and what she said, of course, could have happened, the road you could have taken, and thank God you did not, and you've actually taken the higher road because you're helping people based on the experience. But some people help others, and some people harbor all that they saw and let it become a part of their lives as well. It's really weird. I saw the question would be also, how do you release that? There was a young lady on my show, Janaki Amulet, and she does, what is it called, Qigong therapy, Qigong. And ironically, I spoke to someone else who's a practitioner of Qigong today, so I guess it's a Qigong week. But it's about your energy. It's about your energy and your breathing, and sometimes there's different types of therapy because we're all different types of beings, right?
Yeah.
The Reiki. sometimes we need to go deeper than our skin, release ourselves of the trauma. Because I also believe that the more we talk about it, the more life you bring to it, the more you keep it forefront on your minds. I hear people do that a lot. The problems that they experience, they keep reliving, almost like fertilizing it, which to me means that they really haven't totally gotten over it. They've gone through it, but they really haven't gotten over it. I was at an event in the summer. Oh, we still in the summer? No, we're in September. In the summer. It's hot. And they were doing, it was a woman's gathering. It was an all-white affair, and the guest speaker, she was a practitioner of energy. I can't remember which, what do you call it? I can't remember which type. I can't remember the name of it. But there was a lady who was next to me, and we were talking through the whole thing. We were talking. Her son had died about 2 or 3 years ago, and she never cried. So after the session, it was a great event. We're doing what we're doing, people shopping, we vendors and all of that, and all of a sudden, this loud, it shook the room. This loud yell. I was like, what the heck was that? Well, the work she was doing on her was so that she could release. When she yelled, I know her son and all his new neighbors heard it. No doubt about it. I'm telling you, it was, if we were on soft earth, it would have shook, for real. And it was all that was built up in her. And she moved her energy. She moved her energy. She worked on her, and you could see when she was lighter on her feet, literally, when she finally came up from the table. She was lighter on her feet. So we talk about it, and we talk about getting over it, and I say probably getting through it, but it's still in. A lot of people are still carrying that trauma deep within. And thank you very much for bringing this to the table. But yeah, PTSD is everything. Go ahead, honey.
No, thank you so much. And no, I got goosebumps from when you said that. The lady got to cry, because I know a lot of people. There's an event that I'm going to be participating, and I'm honored to mention her name today because she's a strong woman. Her son passed away 3 years ago, innocently from gun violence. And in honor of his memory, she does a fashion show, which is next Saturday. I'm going to be participating, and it's hard to see her every Saturday when we're practicing. Hear her say, like, how she just gets through the day. She used to do everything with her son. When I say everything, out to eat, wash clothes, clean, school stuff, and to see the strength this woman has to do and put this off for the last 3 years is amazing. And for me to be a part of it is even more. Though I'm against gun violence, I signed up for the event to model there. And just to see that she's able to go to an event, which we've been pushing her to go. She's going to be honored in October. And she's like, I don't know, I don't want to go. I don't want to be holding my son's picture. And we motivated her to say, listen, Yvette, it's time. I said, it's time that you show up, not be scared. It's going to be moments that, you're going to cry, and it's normal. You're going to be among other mothers that lost their children, too. Recently, 7, 3, and it's time. And we have been her motivation because we are participating, like volunteering ourselves for that day for her. And when she mentioned it at one of our practices, she was like, I don't know, they're honoring me. I don't feel like going. I feel like sending, my granddaughter. I said, no, you're going. I said, if you want us to go with you, we would go with you. And I know that has to be the hardest. I would never want that knocking on my door. I got 2 grown boys that I love, I adore. I adore my boys. I would never want to go through something like that. But just to see her talk, and I see her go through the motions, and I look at her face, I see the shirt, and I can understand that has to be the toughest thing to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And we honor her for being the person that she is, because she is a beautiful mother. To me, she became like my best friend now. And I'm going to miss her from these practices now, because I told you that I don't know when Saturdays come, I'm going to miss you, because there's no more, after this weekend, there's no more practice. And she was like, girl, I ain't getting rid of none of y'all when the fashion show is over. And I'm like, I hope we stay in touch. But it's a bond we grew together, because every time she talked about her son, how she was her son, and we were there like a listening ear. And sometimes she would tell us, I haven't cried. It's been 3 years, and now that you said that, it's been 3 years, and we don't know if she'll break for the fashion show. We don't know if she'll break when she gets honored in October. We don't know when that time is going to come, and we've been telling her it's going to happen when you feel it's going to happen, and once it does, I'm quite sure it's going to be more relaxing and the load off her shoulder, because I can understand that's so devastating. You carry a child in your stomach for 9 months, and you see him grow, and then, innocently get wiped off like that. It's terrifying. It's traumatic. I can tell she has, being an expert in my field, she has a lot of trauma. She has a lot of problems sleeping. She doesn't leave the home unless it's something that she has to physically do, and then she's home. And if you call her, she's from work home, practice home. You don't see her in events because she has that trauma. And sometimes I tell her, you got to let yourself go. You got to, but at her time, not no one pressuring her. So, that's part of PTSD that she has, because she has that traumatic thoughts, reliving when she went to the place where her son was killed. Dealing the fact that he's no longer there in the home. So I know it is a devastating thing, and and I have to say I admire her fully, because I don't know, after everything I went through, would I be able, I lost my husband. It was so hard for me to deal with that. After someone treated you so bad, and God sends you this diamond, and 6 months in, I couldn't deal with the fact when he died, and I wanted to off myself. I wanted to commit suicide, because I couldn't function. I couldn't walk down the block where we walked at, because I would freeze. I would call my daughter and be like, talk to me all the way home. I'm not coming out. You pay the bills. And I isolated myself, and in that isolation, I kept looking at the walls, and I'm like, what do I got to live for? Let me off myself. And those thoughts came into my head of what to do, what to take. And it took a lot of me to fight those feelings. And it took my daughter coming in my room like, I'm seeing you isolated yourself. I'm seeing you not eating. I'm scared. And that time she was pregnant. He passed away 2 months in when my granddaughter, beautiful granddaughter, was born. And it took her coming in, I need you. Isaiah needs you. I need you when I have my baby. And I snapped out of it, and I said, oh, my God, I want to off myself. And my daughter's living with me, and she's pregnant, and she's about to give birth in 2 months. And I got my grandson, who I love dearly. I can't do this. I said, God, help me. Help me deal with this pain. Help me deal with this grief, and make me understand. And that's why I say my faith with God is so strong, because he put me through, through all of that, and I understood at the end what you wanted me to learn. What you wanted me to learn, that sometimes I'm going to give you something to make you understand, and then take it away, and you still have to keep learning and understand. And I'm grateful, because God does stuff for a reason, and I don't question him no more. I just go with it, because it's always for a purpose. I let my organization die 5 years ago, and during COVID, in his name, I relived it. I'm doing everything I'm doing now because I relived it, because I know life goes on, and I understand that. And I thank God he's never left my path. He just has opened amazing doors year after year, month after month, and I'm just going through it. And I just say, you know what, we got this. You know, you got this. You never let me go. Whatever you throw on me, I'm your soldier. I just got to handle it and understand it's for a reason. So he has taken, but he has given me so much more. So I understand, and I thank him every day of my life. I thank him for waking me up in the morning. I'm grateful to everything he does, and I don't question anymore. I don't. I really don't. I'm just so grateful. And with that being said, I just hope and pray anybody that's going through this disorder or anything in life, mental illness, PTSD, anything that God helps them get through it. Like I said, I consider myself strong, but I have my moments of breakdowns too, because I'm not far from perfect. I'm not superwoman. It's just little me trying to be out there to help. I have my breaking moments too. Like I said, I'm only human. And, you know, I just go through the trenches to just help, and on a day-to-day basis just to understand that God doesn't give you so much, and he doesn't put you through that because he knows you're going to come out of it. At the end of the day, you're the best soldier when you come out of it. So I'm one of his warriors. I classified myself as a victim years ago. I'm no longer a victim. I'm a survivor. And I don't give anyone any of that energy anymore. I've taken back that power, and I got it. And the power I have, I transmit it into everyone else to help them out every day, however I can put myself there. I do self-care because a lot of people are concerned that I'm doing too much lately, but I do take care of myself. But I really put everything I do, my heart, my strength in it. And that's just me. You know, that's the power that God put in me, and I'll continue as long as God has me here to keep helping. I'm just going to continue. So with that being said, it's time for me to log off, but I do have to make 2 announcements. So if you guys are not busy, my colleague John Monroe Vision Care will be on at 8. Now, anyone in the Newark area, my sister Lighthouse, their 13th annual rally to end domestic violence and sexual abuse will be October the 7th, 10 o'clock. Registration for adults are $10. Registration for children are $5. The walk begins at the Military Park on the corner of Ramon Boulevard. Anyone interested in vending, it's $50. Food vending is $75. And the number to call is 866-768-1987. Yours truly will be speaking that day. After the walk, I was asked to tell my testimony in 5 minutes, which usually I do it under. But I had the honor that the CEO of the organization, I was referred to, someone told them my story was powerful. So October the 7th, after the walk, I will be among other survivors telling their testimony. So I'm going to pray on that day that God gives me the right words to educate and help anybody that's there, and anyone going through that situation through me and other survivors. We are able to help that day. So if you're in the Newark area, you guys are not doing nothing on that Saturday, all are welcome October the 7th to come and see these awesome women that rock, tell their testimonies, because sometimes you think your testimony is strong, somebody else might be even stronger. So I'll be there listening in, and I'll also be talking too. So like I said, if you're in the Newark area and you're not doing nothing October the 7th, please feel free to come to that awesome event, not only listen in, but do the domestic violence walk, because I always say it takes a village. So I'll see you guys next Wednesday with another topic that I know God will invoke in me. I thank everybody for their inputs tonight. Thank you for testimonies, for asking questions, also being able to answer to the best of my knowledge your questions also, and for just coming on tonight. I am so appreciated and grateful. So God bless everyone on my podcast, and I'll see you guys next Wednesday. You have a nice night.
Have a nice night, and
Great
take
show.
care, Francesca.
Yeah, great show.
Blessings to all.
You
Good
as
night,
well.
Francesca, and great talk.